It's really great to have you here among, as you said when you walked in, all of your children.
All of my children are here with us.
That's a really great way to think of all the work that you do. You know, taking in all of this work, the time over which it all unfolds, of course, in the range. But I always want to start with artists talking about inspiration. Where do you come up with all of these things?
So each project has its own story and its own process. Some of the process is the same, you know. For me, I like to have conversations with the director and the production designer, and that sort of dictates what colors you're going to use. And but also there is, you know, the research of the storytelling and what's the time and place, what was happening during that time, and then that travels you down another road. So it really is like one step at a time. We do a lot of illustrating and you know, like when I look at some of the photographers of the time, like James Van Der Zee and Teenie Harris, you know, it's inspiring to bring some of those images to life, and that's where a lot of the images come from.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's unfair to ask an artist which are their favorite children, but some of the work really stands out as maybe a more personal expression or more of you that you put into it to make a statement.
You know, I get that question a lot. Favorites, you know, they're like my children. I can't have a favorite.
I can't choose.
But there are some that the whole experience was amazing. I mean, being in the desert at the pyramids in Egypt on a Spike Lee joint doesn't get much better than that. But at the same time, you know, learning about our journey from when we landed here, going through all of the different ways we clothed ourselves. And I didn't know that they had these special places on the plantations that were just dedicated to spinning cloth and sewing garments. And so that was exciting for me to, you know, to get into that. So, you know, every single one. I mean, of course, Black Panther being a very, very special film. Sure. Is like a favorite. I learned a lot, even after 30-something years in the business. I was still learning. But, you know, Malcolm X was wonderful too. So it's hard to really say one. As soon as I say one, I think of another.
Right, right. And again, the range of material here in terms of the story is so broad. I mean, clothing people for Roots is really different than clothing people for Wakanda or for Do the Right Thing.
But actually it isn't.
It's not. Okay, tell me why.
It really isn't. I have utilized the African diaspora on everything.
On all of them. Okay.
And sometimes it's the way we combine the colors. Sometimes it's bringing in the messages, you know, and Do the Right Thing. They had little lanyard that they would wear around their necks. So Africa with the colors of the flag, and, you know, Kente, and we used a lot of Ankara and Do the Right Thing. So there is just like, you know, you and I, you know, we can trace our roots back. Sure. And that's the same with clothing. We can look at clothing, like for Roots, I wanted to use like the indigo, and how, you know, indigo was used quite a bit in Sierra Leone. And so I used the blue as a family color. And I carried the blue in every episode of Roots Reboot, because I wanted to have a lineage and a legacy. So really, there is a lot of our past woven in the present.
To all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have here on the exhibit the sewing machine I believe you used as a child. Is that right?
Yes, my sewing machine that was in my room.
Yeah.
My mom put it in my room. Actually, it was folded up and it looked like a desk.
Okay.
So, you know, I guess my mother like pushed that thing in my room and said, you know, she can do her homework on it, or maybe she'll discover that this is a sewing machine and she'll want to use it. Yeah. You know, single parent household. I had, you know, there's 8 children, 5 brothers and 2 sisters. So, you know, we were very inventive as kids. I have two brothers that are artists, and they're painters and sketch artists. They didn't work at that. That wasn't their primary job. I mean, I'm a child of the 70s, you know, and so they were before me, and we had to actually go get a job, you know, and painting was like a hobby. So I had that sewing machine in my room, and when I discovered it, it kind of replaced my sketchbook. So I like to think that I'm the sum of my parts, that I had this love for sketching and drawing that I got from my brothers, and then I discovered this way of working with textiles and making art with the sewing machine.
Yeah. So you are the first African-American woman to win 2 Oscars. I mean,
Yeah.
Just saying that is kind of
Surreal.
Remarkable,
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
But the work that took you to that moment is also really special. I mean, it's special to so many people.
Yeah.
Talk about Wakanda.
Yeah, well, I worked really hard, and you know, when I met Ryan Coogler at Marvel, I had amassed a lot of images on my computer in a Dropbox. I didn't know that once you got into the Marvel studio that you couldn't open things like Dropboxes. You know, they have a firewall. And I'm kind of a little concerned because I'm in an interview and I can't open the images that I collected over days to show him.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there very relaxed, and now that I've worked with him on 2 movies, I see that disposition. I can remember this disposition, even though it was new to me then. He was very laid back, he was very patient, and he said, Ruth, I'm really glad you're here. I was a little boy growing up in Oakland when Malcolm X came out, and I remember it was a family environment in the theater. People are excited about the movie opening. I went with my family. I sat on my dad's lap and watched Malcolm X, and I remember as a little boy seeing the costumes.
Yeah. Wow.
And when he said that, you know, what I was concerned about on that Dropbox was no longer important.
That's not the issue, right?
Yeah, and I realized I could contribute something to this young man. We created this world together. It's a very collaborative field. So by the time it was released, the trailer came out, I was sitting there watching, and I immediately started getting like text messages and tweets and all kinds of stuff, and I thought, wow, this is really going to be big. And then there I was on the Oscar stage.
Watch One Detroit, Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.